Good morning. It's March 23rd, Friday. I'm supposed to be in court. I just have to go back and address it. I've been supposed to be in court for a few times, and I got a couple warrants hanging over me, but one's been like a year, so I don't really interact much with the law. I'm on like day 7 or 8 of this vegetarian thing. I'm going like 3/4 of the way vegan. I'm not like eating eggs, or I am eating cheese and sour cream because that is my sanity. Cheese on salads, sour cream and burritos. Just try not to have a lot of it. I don't do cheese and sour cream. But a lot of bean burritos, lettuce, cheese, and rice, as well as vegetables and fruits. It's different. I don't mind the meals themselves, but I do mind the thought effort that has to go into it. It's a lot of thought effort of thinking about what I can or can't eat. But I'm sure once I get over that, it'll be okay. I'm at Papago Park-ish, a different area, kind of in the back. So I was debating about talks. I did a talk and I got cut off. Like I said, I started going into it about words and symbols, but then I just went into biblical symbols. So the main symbol that stood out, which I guess I'll carry over, is the cross. The cross is always a symbol in every almost religion without even maybe fully seeing it all the time. But one form or another, you always come across the cross. And my opinion in this point and why I've gotten to this level is it constantly reminds us of our reality we live in. Not only our reality, but us as people with our two arms and our foundation and our head. I mean, basically the cross is us. It's the world we live in as well as the stories we're told. But it gets even more than that, and it goes into what I feel is more of a microscopic level, like the tetrahedron, which is the two triangles, you could consider it, one going up, one going down, which again is another symbol for like the elements. So when you look at the element symbols, I mean, they all are triangles with either a line or an upside down triangle. Well, that comes back to the tetrahedron or the Star of David, or in my opinion, what that represents is there's a former science that was known that was the way things are formed. Because when we talk about a sphere, and we are essentially picking out points. You can pick out, 12 points, which would then represent that of the tetrahedron, I believe. But it's also a dodecahedron, which is, I don't want to get too much into craziness, but basically what it represents is our reality. The cross is the 7 points. It's the front, back, top, bottom, left to right, and then the center point. Well, that's also the creation story. That's how, God created the earth, supposedly. It was 1 through 6 days, and the 7th day he rested. Well, that's another analogy for front, back, left, right, up, down, and then the center. Why is that analogy? Because that's the world we live in. That's all of our spatial reality. That is our 3D reality. It was renowned, it was revered, it was understood, but not only was it renowned for that understanding, but again, it represents us as individuals. But it also represents a microscopic world, like where the particles and things collaborate together in the most sensible way, and that is what the sensible way becomes is the tetrahedron of the Star of David, or when molecules, join up one another. That's basically what's their formation. It is also the square to the round. It's the masculine, it's the feminine to the masculine. Because in a world of symbols, the masculine is the straight line, the feminine is the curved line. In Kabbalic teachings, you talk about the creation story, and it represents it as a circle. It talks about creating that first initial perimeter and then expanding out to any other point within that line and creating another perimeter, and then from that perimeter picks another point. Well, it does it in the form of opposites. So whatever point it started with, it starts the next point at the opposite of the originator. It's all this craziness, though. Like, there's so much information that goes into that. Just the cross alone, the symbol, like why it's a symbol or what makes it a symbol. But then you also got things like the garden in the east and, Eden. All these things also represent qualities of the mind, the understanding. You have, I think there was a angel that guards the Garden of Eden. I want to say it was Michael, I believe. I might be getting that confused, but there's a guardian that supposedly guards the Garden of Eden. This is all discussing, in my opinion, portions of the brain. It's the way the blood flows, the way it goes into the the pituitary to the pineal, the cerebral cortex, like it flows down your spine. Like that's what all these stories are talking about. Not only half of the blood flow, but also like you got to remember in ancient times, creating a baby was a miraculous feat. So it wasn't fully understood. I can bet money for some period of time that it wasn't fully understood why a baby was created sometimes and a baby wasn't created other times. So it became my thought process that a lot of these stories or myths that are talking about, specific things like Ishtar in the underworld and the 7 gates and her having to relinquish a garment of clothing per each gate she entered. And when she finally completed it, she was able to regain her clothing and save whoever it is she was saving. I want to say it was Tammuz. She had to save Tammuz from the underworld or something to that effect. That's just one story. That's like the Babylonian, the Akkadian story of Ishtar. You also see Ishtar holding an ankh, which is the cross with the hoop on top, and something else, and she's riding like some form of beast. I forget what the beast is, like a lion or something. Well, the lion or the beast that she's riding is symbolic of the ego. Each and every a goose. Each and every gate she's crossing through is a form of the ego that she has to release and relinquish. She has to undress herself and become her true self, which is the spirit self in that story. So the beast she rides is the lion, which is also the ego again, which is in a whole lot of other myths and pictures and some form or figure riding on top of an animal. And more times than none, the animal became the cherubim, or it was the lion, the ox, the man, and I want to say the phoenix, the bird. So it had all 4 characters. Well, the reason it has those 4 characters is for the cardinal directions. There's all these different symbols that get, good morning, get created. I'm in a park, so it's a little different. These symbols get created for the purpose of understanding your nature, as well as understanding your mind, understanding the reality you exist in. Manly P. Hall stated something to the effect that every symbol has about 7 different understandings. Back to the Garden of Eden, I kind of tangented away from that. Well, the Garden of Eden residing in the east is, you got to remember when you think of your body and your head in this cardinal directions, north, east, south, west, the east would be on your right because it's from your perspective. Just like when you talk about the right-hand path or the left-hand path, the left-hand path is talking about when you're looking at someone, the left side, but in reality, it's your right side. It's the feminine side. The woman is always right. And the feminine side is the hemisphere of the brain that supposedly is the creative and instinctive, intuitive versus the logical, mathematical left side. So when you activate your east mind, your right mind, the garden in the east, and you go into this garden, you're intentionalizing your creative, your intuitive, your positive, you need the balance. We live in a world full of unbalanced, and the left side is always creating that unbalanced living because we don't live in the creative or the instinctive or the intuitive. We only live in the logical, mathematical, factual. And that's the battle, is that we're trying to understand this weird invisible world when we've been grown up to be raised around this logical aspect, and it just doesn't make sense. But in order to become making sense, you have to put effort and work towards that creative, imaginative, instinctive. And it's just a matter of putting forth the effort. Do you want to be artistic? Do you want to draw? Because in my opinion, everyone talks about meditation. I got 1 minute because I'm on a time limit with this self-facing camera. You got to be, when you go through a meditation, all you're really doing is you're practicing your art of focus. So when you are practicing your art of focus, you are strengthening the mind that is dealt in that aspect with the focused mind. It becomes a muscle and it gets stronger and more greater. The same goes for artistic individuals. Those who are projecting their will at art are staying in that focused mind state for so long that it's exercising that part of the brain without you really trying to exercise it, because that's what meditation is. It's about focusing for long periods of time so you can strengthen that part of your mind. I'm gonna stop now. I got 20 seconds. Hopefully this is a good enough talk. I don't know, it's kind of rambled, but I never discuss any of this in my mind when I'm getting here. I just find the place and I just go. So that'll be it. 10, 7, 6, 5. You guys have a great rest of the day. Take care.